Father Charles Rooney, who is from St. Dominican in Youngstown, Dominican priest. We have Chris and Monica Fogarty, who are parishioners here, and we Chris is on parish council here as well. Just very active members, so they'll be here to represent the sacrament of marriage. And then we have Father Travis Seagrave, representing diocesan priesthood, and he is over at Divine Mercy Parish in Macedon. So also,
and St. Philip.
And St. Philip and James in Canal Fulton. So also one of our neighbors around here. So I'm just going to hand it off to you to learn about Vocations and their story, how they ended up where they're at, and why vocations are important for our sanctity and holiness. So.
Okay, great. I'll say it's a pleasure to be here. We're each going to go through in a little bit and talk a bit about our own personal vocation stories, but I just begin with some brief comments on what a vocation is in general, just to kind of set the stage, set the context for our own particular stories of how God has worked in our lives and brought us to the current state of life which we now live. So the first thing to say with respect to vocation, and you may know even what's at the root of that word, vocare, which is it's a call. So we just heard about a calling of Abraham, St. Paul speaking about the call of God, which is from his eternal designs. And in the context of an OCIA class, like the key to think about is what is like the general vocation in the entire church, and that's a vocation to heaven. So every single person here, whether you're already married, whether you're single, whatever your marital status may be, etc., like we all have a vocation to hold the face of God for all eternity, and that's first and foremost why we're here, is just to do that, and then most especially why we seek union with Christ and His church, and especially to receive the Easter sacraments, because we know, again, just think about like what's happening in the OCIA class. We're preparing to be changed at the Easter Vigil. I mean, many of you will be baptized. All of you will be confirmed. I presume. So all of you will be confirmed, which means all of your souls will be permanently modified in at least one way, and some of you two ways on the night of day before. And that configuration, which will happen in the depth of your soul through the sacrament of baptism and rebirth and the sacrament of confirmation into adulthood, is to set you on a new course toward God, a course which you can't yet live as fully as you will be able to after April 4th. And so then, if we think about like the big V vocation in the church that everyone has is to live in God and to be with God, then the question of what we can say is like lowercase v vocations, the vocation to be a priest, the vocation to be a consecrated religious, in our case, the vocation to be in the state of holy the sacrament and state of holy matrimony, is a particular way in which the big V vocation to holiness is specified according to God's plan for the growth of His church, whether through the reproduction of offspring or through the communication of spiritual goods. So I think, just broadly speaking then, if we want to think about how all of the different sacraments, fit together, because we're talking at least about two sacraments here, and then consecrated life, which we both live, is itself not a sacrament, but something analogous, is just to think about how all of the sacraments, all 7 sacraments, can be mapped onto the course, the trajectory of our own human life. So every human being is born. Every human being in the ordinary natural course comes to the fullness of age. You come to adulthood at least just by simply eating and drinking and falling asleep, and doing that enough times for enough years. We all need to eat and drink every day in order to survive. We also apologize to people on a pretty regular basis, if we make mistakes. Especially if you're married or if you live religious life, you're apologizing all the time to the people with whom you live. And if you're not, good luck living your vocation. And then we also know that when we get sick, we go to a doctor, right? Okay, so we already have 5 sacraments accounted for in those first 5 things. We're born into this life, we're reborn into heaven. We come to maturation through adolescence and adulthood. That's what confirmation does. Confirmation gives you supernatural adulthood. We eat and drink every day, even here among us, breaking bread as we think about the things of God. That's what the Holy Eucharist is. We apologize to each other. Well, we apologize to God in the flesh in Jesus Christ through the presence of His priest. And when we get sick and ill, we need not only physical help, but we also need spiritual help. And so we're anointed with the sacrament of the sick, so that our own sickness, the cause of our own physical deterioration, could itself be converted into a cause of our holiness. Amazing thing about that. And then we can think about the last 2 things that human beings do in their social life especially, which is to marry and be given in marriage for the sake of making fruitful and multiplying the earth, and also for organizing our society. We often, sometimes on our nobler days, we think about vocation, we think about politics, or we think about, say, a fireman or a policeman as a kind of vocation. People work in public service for the sake of facilitating the good of our common life as a society. And in the same way, God takes what is naturally good in the reproduction of the human race and what is naturally good in the governance of human society, and he institutes supernatural means so that the supernatural city or the supernatural kingdom of his church can also be administered for the sake of the flourishing of its citizens, and so that those citizens can also be reproduced. And that's effectively what's happening then when we think about the priesthood or holy orders. It's about ordering holy things in the church so that the goods of God, the sacraments most especially, God's word, etc., can be administered and diffused. And then holy matrimony, well, not just the reproduction or the population of earth so we can have more human beings, but really the primary vocation of a married couple is to populate heaven through rearing holy children. And so I think with that kind of background as to how the sacraments fit together, and especially those sacraments we speak of sometimes, the sacraments of vocation, sacraments of mission, we might jump into our own personal stories of how God drew us to such sacraments. That's why it's always hard to do.
You did such a good job. Did you want to start off with your story?
I've spoken for a little while.
Okay.
I think I'll
Trade off.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
start?
sure,
Okay.
we can start off. Again, we're Chris and Monica. We've been married now for going on 21 years. We have 9 children. Our oldest is about to be 20, and our youngest is almost 2. He was born.
Their birthdays are next week. They're one day apart.
Yeah.
It was a very full circle parenting moment. Our youngest was born the day after our daughter turned 18. So we, it's like the experience, parenting all the possible.
Yeah. So our I think both of our stories, and I'll always touch on this specifically, but from a young age, I felt attracted to the married life. My mom and dad are both from big families. My mom is the second of 6, and my dad's the fourth of 11. And marriage and family were a big part of that experience growing up. All of my aunts and uncles just had a big emphasis on marriage. Out of that 17 kids, one marriage ended in divorce, but everyone else has been together. Praise God. Almost everyone has stayed in the church, and so I just had this really strong experience of growing up with a positive aspect or positive view of marriage. And I know that's not the experience that everyone has, but I was blessed to see that. Grew up in the church and would hear the church ladies say, "Hey, you make a great priest," or we talked probably about being a priest, and my mom was always saying, yeah, that's good, but don't forget that being a priest and being a dad both have very similar qualities. So whatever God calls you to. And before we started tonight, Bobby said something about, he said, thank you for saying yes to each other and for saying yes to your father's point. Whether your vocation is to the married life or to the religious life, we're ultimately saying yes to God's will. And so as I grew and matured in that, again, it was something that was very attractive to me. I knew that I wanted to find the right spouse. I was hopeful that we would have a family, so that we have. And I'll stop there and let you catch up and meet back.
So I also grew up in the church. I was the 6th of 8 kids. So also had family life pretty much my experience. I went to Student Youth Conferences during my high school time, and that was one of my first real exposures to religious life, because growing up, of course, I had the priest at my parish, but that was just about it. Like, I was just not exposed to new orders or other experiences. So that was they focused on that too with us as talking about considering the vocation. So I tried to always really be open to that. That was important to me, that I would be open to it, but it also scared me a little bit because I don't know that I would like that, being a nun or, but people reminded me very importantly that there's nothing to be afraid of, that God would reveal to me what his call to me was, and that I would have peace with it. And I was really thankful that I already kind of had that perspective. I didn't date in high school. I wasn't real. I had seen my siblings ahead of me have a lot of high school relationships, and I saw some of that not go great. And I was kind of like, let's stay away from the drama. I'll wait till I'm actually ready for a real relationship. That being said, our story joins when we got to Franciscan University in Steubenville, Ohio. He had been a friend of my brother-in-law, so I actually knew of him, had met him. and had actually danced with him at my sister's wedding prior to my getting there to school. So we knew each other very loosely when I got there. But it wasn't long in being there. I was 18 years old when we started dating. So he is my first and only and forever boyfriend, which is a great and rare gift. But I, again, was thankful that I had been reminded that he would have peace, because I was able to kind of, I wasn't like sure the first day that he was the one for me. But it didn't take too long until I was like, I could see myself marrying this guy. And I don't know if that's, I remember telling my roommate, I don't know if this guy is who God has planned for me, but I feel like we could get married tomorrow and we could make it work. And I just kind of kept that in my mind. Like, okay, God, if there's something else that I need to see, then I guess you're going to need to show it. Because in my mind, I think we like work really well together, and I want, what you want.
Yeah, so we dated throughout college. I spent some time studying abroad. She was behind me, but she finished about a year after I did. And a side note, her dad came into the church. He was a convert before or around
Just before I was born.
at St. Peter's downtown. They were there for married. Give that experience as well. But when we got married soon after college, and I'll tell you, some of you know this because probably a lot of you are parents, but having children really brings you together as a married couple. And you don't realize the depth of that partnership until God blesses you with children. You have to really double down and be together. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But just to take you briefly through our time married, I started working in a full-time professional role. I lost my job a few years later. We were living in my hometown on the other side of the state. And we moved back here to live with her parents while I went to school at Kent State to become a nurse, and I've been a nurse for 10 years and I'm a practitioner now. So one of the things that we really learned through that, our motto was that we wanted to live with uncomfortable people, that we knew that God doesn't call you to be comfortable in all things, that God, he calls you to do his will, and sometimes that's uncomfortable. But we wanted to be at peace with that, so we relied on our shared partnership in marriage and this shared goal of parenting to get through it. And again, we'll talk some more about the specifics in a little bit, but it's been the great joy of our lives to share that sacrament and to share parenting. That's what it's about.
Oh,
We're
I
looking at
can.
you.
Okay. Hi, friend. So, what am I supposed to say?
Just your story.
My vocation story. Okay. Well, I guess it's kind of a long story. So I usually like to start that I didn't grow up Catholic. I actually became Catholic when I was in college at Ohio State in Columbus. And so I went through the OCIA in 2015, 2016. I entered the church in 2016. And so it was March 25th, 2015, coming up. I like to celebrate it here. And Easter Vigil holds a very special place in my heart because that's when I actually became Catholic. That's when the sacraments came together. And so I don't know, when I was in high school, I would, like a lot of guys in high school, I dated. But, things didn't really work out. Well, obviously it didn't. You don't really get a collar by things like that working out. But I was really I was Southern Baptist when I was in college, in high school. I guess, in college too. And I was really thinking about becoming a minister or something. It was actually a great desire of mine. But my friends actually talked me out of it. They said, no, you're a smart guy, so go to college and get educated so you make a lot of money. So I was like, okay, so I won't do the whole religion thing because I knew I want to make a lot of money. So I do what people who want to make a lot of money do, and I majored in history. And it was really because I didn't know what to do that the whole religious thing was still a great desire of mine. But I have a twin brother, and he was studying philosophy. And so a conversation with him was a philosophy lecture. So I ended up majoring in history, minoring in philosophy. My brother is now like an actual like PhD, like, philosopher at University of Purdue. Teaches kids there, and I don't know, he makes me, I don't know. So he's very humbling to be around. But the thing is that I've always taken my studies very seriously. And so I was always a person of very strong faith and a lot of prayer. But studying history at a secular university and then studying philosophy at a secular university comes with a lot of challenges. And I found that my Southern Baptist faith was not able to stand up to the historical critical method and critical secular philosophy. And so I had a lot of like really hard conversations with myself, with God, and also with my brother. Like, well, what am I going to do? That I didn't really feel comfortable like going to church anymore because I'm like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be believing. I know the Bible pretty well. I'm self-Catholic, and so so it was kind of fun when like I started hanging around Catholics, and it was like, yeah, I think Paul says that somewhere in like Romans chapter 5. So it's fun. Know your Bible. It's a good thing. And so yeah, I did what I was trained to do, and I did history. So I thought like, okay, I took the challenge. Someone challenged me. And said, well, if you really believe that, if you want to know what Christ taught and what those people believe, then you have to read the early church fathers. Because everybody reads scripture, and we all disagree about it. So you can't really start there. Good place to start, but like you're not going to get very far with it. Okay, so I read the early church fathers, and long story short, I found out they were all Catholic. And so I was mad. I was like, oh man. The thing was, I was actually dating a Lutheran girl at the time. And I was talking to her about like my desire to become like a minister of some sort. She was the daughter, is the daughter of a Lutheran pastor. And so my idea was, oh yeah, this is what God wants me to do. Especially I started attending services with her. And what do you know? The readings are about marriage. We're like, oh yeah, God is telling me I'm going to marry her. I'm going to become a Lutheran pastor, and we're going to have one big happy Lutheran family. And then God said, actually, I want you to become Catholic. Oh, well, Catholic ministers, they're called priests, and they're celibate. So I'm like, well, this is now like a really hard ball. Like, what am I going to do? And I was thinking about it real hard. I was like, what am I going to tell Elise? Well, 2 weeks later, she broke up with me. On my birthday. And so, yeah, that was awful. But when you don't know what to do, God sometimes answers your prayers in surprising ways. So I found myself single going into the Catholic Church, and I was like, wow. But my twin brother, he came with me, so he's Catholic. He went to the entire OCIA program with me. It took a bit of convincing. Maybe I'll tell his story a different day. Let's focus on me. And so going through the RCIA program, we've now dropped the R into the O. It used to be RCIA. Going through that, I was still kind of like iffy. It's like, well, do I really want to be a priest? Like, it's a big life change. I'm still new to all this. I don't even know like what it really means to be Catholic. But it was, I don't know, can you call it like a light bulb moment? Do you still use that phrase? Mm-hmm. Okay. Some people here are old enough. So it was when there was the young priest. He had just exited seminary, so he was fresh, and he was teaching OCIA about, well, I guess vocations. He was teaching about like marriage and the priesthood. And I remember this phrase. He started off with holy matrimony, then moved to holy orders, and he said, whereas a man marries a woman in holy matrimony, in holy orders, the man marries the church. And it was that moment that I'm just like, that's what I want. I really want that. And then immediately I became like terrified, and it was like I just had that thought. Like I'm kind of afraid to admit that I really wanted to marry the church. After all, I hardly knew the church. But I don't know. I guess it's like, I don't know. You're just struck by someone, or I guess in this case, like Holy Mother Church. And so that like really started the moment when I'm like, I have to really take this seriously. So I started talking to a bunch of people. because I was a convert, or I am a convert, they wanted me to wait at least 2 years before I filled out the application. So I talked with a lot of priests, and I was a very shy person. So talking to a lot of these men that I really didn't know, dressed in funny clothing that I just like still don't know what it means, right? That was very intimidating, but it was a lot of things that like I was scared. And, like I'm kind of tired of being scared of figuring out what God wants me to do. So if God really wants me to do it, then like, well, from hell or high water, I'm going to do it. And I think that that's one of the marks of like a vocation, that there's a certain like drive in you to do it, even when you're absolutely terrified. I mean, on my ordination day, I was sweating buckets, and that's just what it like. Like I was absolutely terrified walking into that. But that's the experience of a lot of guys. So 7 years later, after finishing seminary, 7 years is difficult. I ran away from seminary several times, got caught once, and they made a big deal about it. And I'm just like, if only you knew. So I ran away like 6 other times. You just didn't know about it. I came back, didn't I? Whatever. So yeah, like you, even though you're celibate as a priest, as say like in my case, a diocesan, you don't do it alone. The fraternity of the priesthood is a real thing. So while I'm going through seminary, like, you know, I meet a lot of really great guys. I grow with them, and like I get hurt with them, and I struggle with them. I lose sleep with them, and then we wake up and we pray morning prayer together. Like it's really a great gift just seeing how we really come together to support each other, even though all of us are so different. I actually mentioned this to some people earlier. There were 9 guys in my ordination class. 8 of them were from Cleveland, 1 from Youngstown. That's me. We are all so different, like radically different. Outside the seminary, none of us would be friends. We would hate each other. But, and even on like things you think that we would agree on, like liturgical style, prayer preferences, political opinions, all of us are just so different. And yet we come together and pray because we're like this. What do we love? We love the church and God's people. And so like that's what we're there to do. And so it's really like it's really heartwarming to know that like I can go to one of my brothers, one like if I need confession, that's always nice. But also just to talk, because whatever I've been through, they've been through too. So we have a fraternity. We have parishioners. We sometimes call them our kids. Because just like when kids like talk to you about each other, like he did that, she said that, and just like I do that too. And it's funny, a lot of people call me father even though I'm half your age. So it's a great joy. There are a lot of hidden joys that like prayer is always good, and prayer is vital. It is a life. So either whether you're married, ordained, or single, or whatever, pray.
Yes, it's my turn.
I'm going to be rogue because I cannot sit and think. It's the teacher in me. I have to move around. Also, I was an interpreter for deaf people, so I'm going to be going like this a lot. But I have to say something because this is too good to pass up. I just can't pass this up. Before I entered the monastery, I was volunteering at the Road of Wise House. Somebody told me, don't get mad at me, Dominicans were nerds and Franciscans were hippies. So I thought that was really hilarious.
There we are.
Is it true?
I haven't made an assessment of her yet, but there's still time. It's not boding well.
I am Sister Mary Faustina, and my title is Queen of the Most Holy Rosary. I am with the Four Clares of Perpetual Adoration. What we are known for in this community is bread and soup and the pepperoni roll sale. So people are nodding. Thank you. I made it all by myself. Yeah. Okay. Our community is very different because we have people from all over the world. We have people from Japan, and we have 4 people from the Philippines, and we have 2 people from Tanzania. We have a South Korean, and me. I am from the exotic place of Uniontown. Born and raised in Uniontown. I went to Lake High School, go Lake. And I was Methodist. So my friends were Catholics, and we kind of grew up. I don't know. I had no idea. So when I was in middle school, my friend said, "Let's spend the night with me." I'm like, okay. So she said, "We're going to go to Mass in the morning." I'm like, okay. So we get to, I don't know if you guys know, in Springfield, there's a place called Nativity of our Lord Jesus Christ. You know it? Yeah. Okay. So we get to the church. Her and her mom go to the choir, and I'm sitting with her dad and her brother. Never been to a Mass before, so I'm just sitting there. Everybody gets up and goes to the line. I'm not going to sit by myself. I'm going to go with them. They gave me this wafer, and I was like, cool, I like this church. I give you free food. So I came home and I said, "Mom, I got this like cracker thing," and she goes, "Honey, usually only Catholics have that." And I'm going, "Oh, you mean I'm Catholic now?" She's like, no. Little did I know, a few years after that, in the exact same church, the exact same priest, I was going to be married. So, and then I graduated, went to Kent State Stark Ranch, and I met this guy, and we started dating, and his mom was Baptist, and she was going to the OCIA program in St. Michael's on Fulton there. And I started asking questions, and she said, "Well, why don't you just come with me?" I said, "Okay, sure." So I went, and they had, at that time, it was one of the best RCIA programs. I mean, a lot of people came. It was they had a fantastic group at that time. And so I became Catholic. And I remember the night before I became Catholic. I became Catholic March 28th, 1991. And I told my mother, I said, "Mom, I'm becoming Catholic. Would you like to come with me?" She looked right at me and she said, "I am not interested." I said, "Okay, I'll do it by myself." And I did. I had no family there. The only friends I had were in the RCIA program. But it was the best decision I ever made. And I'm telling that I never regretted it, not once. Well, maybe, in Lent we can eat meat, But anyway, so I hear now I'm 21 years old. I'm Catholic. What do? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a nun. Why not? So I was looking. At the time they give you a book, and it's all the different vocations. So I'm looking at this book, and I'm going, as if I saw a veil. Nope. I cannot be in a veil, because what if somebody I know sees me? I'm 21 years old. You can't. Oh my gosh, how am I going to explain that? So nope. Somebody contacted me with the Ursulines in Youngstown. They didn't have my habits. I'm thinking, wow, I can continue my teaching for the deaf, and I can, stay on my career, and it will be good. Well, it didn't actually work out that way. I was supposed to graduate that spring and then enter the convent that spring. God said, So I had no support, because like I said, my mom and dad are from Hartville, and we grew up with Amish and Mennonite, and in that culture, if you change your religion, it's like a slap in the face of your family. And they thought, when I told my parents I wanted to join the Ursulines, my mom said, she's going to shave her head and join a cult. Oh my gosh. She was not happy at all. But anyway, I contacted a friend of mine. Well, he wasn't actually a friend. I really had a biggest crush on him in high school. But I found out he was in the Dominican order in Cincinnati, so I started writing to him. He left that. I left the Ursulines, and we got married, and we had 3 children. We were living the high life. We lived in Columbus and Westerville for years, and our boys grew up, and we were in Vermont. We actually lived in Steubenville for a short time because he worked at the university there. And he got a job at University of Vermont working. He got his PhD, and we were living the high life. I had my 3 boys. I had my 3 cats. I had a $500,000 house. We were just living. I was coasting along. Yeah, I go to mass. I'm good. Do you ever feel like sometimes Jesus tells God, hey, Dad, watch this. Zap. You ever feel like that sometimes? That's what happened. My husband started having pains, and he went in the hospital. And I remember taking my son to the piano lesson. I came back, he wasn't home. The hospital's this big. So I'm going, what's going on? So by the time I got there, they had tests and everything all done. And the doctor came in, he took my hand, and I'm going, what? He pulled the curtain and he said, it's the absolute worst thing that could ever happen. He has stage 4 colon cancer. You have 3 to 5 years to live. Then I said, wait a second. So you're saying that based on the statistic of what? How old are the ages that die from this? Oh, 70s, 80s. I said, he's 45 years old. Oh, okay, you might get 5 to 8 years. I didn't get a year and a half, he was gone. Because we did not realize at the time he had also had tumors in his brain. But anyway, so now here I am. We moved back to Ohio after he got sick because he didn't want to die in Vermont. I understand that. So we moved back to Uniontown, and I'm like, okay, now what do I do? I don't know what to do with myself. I lost my husband. The boys are older now. They really don't need me. I just didn't know what I was going to do with my life. Then somebody said, let's go to the monastery. And I looked at them and said, what monastery? I grew up in Stark County. There's no monastery here. Oh, yeah, there is. Come on. So we go to this Santa Clara Monastery. I didn't even know it was even there. So we go in, and I'm like, oh, those cute little nuns. You can kind of see through the slots if you sit in the right spot. You can like see through them. Well, that's pretty cool, you know. And then I started going to mass. Well, this lady in front of me, she was going to mass every day too. She turned to me and we started talking. She goes, I'm a Franciscan secular. And I'm going, what is a Franciscan secular? Didn't have any idea. That's a whole nother group of people. Okay, so I started going there for a while. It's kind of like a lay person. It's kind of, they make the commitment and they do different things in the community to help the poor and those kinds of things. It still wasn't working. There was something more going on. So she turned and she said, they need some volunteers. We still need volunteers if you guys are interested. And she said, we have an older sister that, needs somebody to just sit and talk to us. And I can do that. So I went in and I started volunteering. And then I find out, they need somebody to sit there at the phones and answer the phone. I can do that. I worked at Ohio State. I worked for a summer, the director of the Fawcett Center, and I answered the phones. That's what I did. I can do that. So I went and started answering the phones. And then Mother Gertrude came to me and said, the reason why you see me so much is we don't have an extern. Now, my community is cloistered, and that means they don't go out. They only go out for doctor's appointments. So they stay inside, and they have like a place in the back where they can walk, that kind of stuff. And our primary thing is to pray. And she said, the reason why, again, we don't have an extern. I said, what's an extern? She said, an extern is somebody that can take them to the doctor's appointments, that can go out and give talks and that kind of thing. We are the face, we are the connection between the outside world and us. They haven't had an extern in 25 years. So, and I said, well, if you are willing to take me at my age, I am a little bit older, I will agree to be your extern. And she laughed, because I think I threw her. And then a few weeks later, she came back, she said, okay. I'm like, are you serious? So that's kind of how I started, I entered this community. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. The best thing is, this is so nice, after years and years of fighting traffic. All I do is get up, get dressed, and go down to Mass. It's great. Go right downstairs, and it's down the hall, and I don't have to fight the traffic. I don't have to do anything. And our primary mission is this is the monstrance. And we have if you ever been to the monastery, it's open all day, every day. We have Mass at 9 o'clock every day. Is Eucharistic adoration. So my favorite thing in the whole world is to just be able to go down and talk to Jesus, to actually see him. And when I'm angry, because I have a temper, I'm not used to hiding my feelings. I go down and yell at him if I'm really angry. I'll tell you a quick story and then I'm done. I was really angry one day because it's hard to live with other women, especially when they're from different cultures and you don't know the culture. I never met anybody from the Philippines before. And if you say something wrong, they misunderstand and they get all upset. It's frustrating sometimes, but it's also very fascinating. So I was really upset one time, and the sisters were sitting behind me, and I went right up to the Blessed Sacrament, and I put my hands on my hips. I let him have it. I didn't say anything out loud, but I was gritting my teeth, and I let him have it. One of my sisters said, no, you really shouldn't do that. And I looked at her and said, look, if I'm going to marry this guy, I've been a wife before. If I'm mad, he's going to know it. That's one. And number two, Jesus came down to St. Faustina and told her, if you're angry, let me know. If you're upset, let me know. I want to know. If you're happy, let me know. Talk to me. And so I'm taking him up on it. So, anyway.
Thank you, sister. You know, your title, Our Lady of the Rosary, Queen of the Most Holy Rosary, is a Dominican title. So she didn't even know. She didn't even know. So you might be a hybrid. And we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay? Yeah, so a hippie nerd, that makes sense. By your own words. We'll use your own words against you and for you. Any case, so as I said, it's a great joy to be with you this evening. Father Charles Rooney. I'm a Dominican friar and a priest. I'm not local. I grew up in Connecticut. I was born in New York City, and I am a friar of the Eastern Province of the Dominican Order, which is our territory extends from Maine to Virginia out to Ohio, as west as Louisville, Kentucky. And we've been in the Diocese of Youngstown before it was even existed. We became the Diocese of Cleveland in 1923. We founded this parish in the south side of Youngstown. We served a lot of steel workers for about 55 years. And then when the mills closed, we stayed, thank God. And now we're still in Youngstown, the very same place, St. Dominic's or St. Dom's, as the people in Youngstown like to say, with great, great affection, and I love it. And we're now a bilingual parish serving both English and Spanish-speaking parishioners, Catholics, in the south side. I would say, just in hearing the stories thus far, I said at the beginning, a vocation, of course, is a call to holiness, to see God and to see him face to face. But ultimately, what is holiness? It's love. It's the love of God poured forth into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us. And so a vocation is really the path by which you're going to love God. And every married couple, hopefully should manifest this or evince this or show this forth in the love which they have for their spouse. And every priest, every religious, the consecrated religious, every nun, every friar, should also manifest this through the joy that he has in thinking about God and speaking of the things of God. Because at the end of the day, we're made for God, and we're made to love God, and our vocation is the specific way in which we are going to love God very concretely, very obediently, very faithfully, in our life. And in my case, I grew up in let's say a cradle Catholic family. We went to mass every Sunday growing up. I went to CCD, those kinds of things. I grew up, outside of New York City, and there were a lot of other, I'd say, my own family life, Sunday mass was not an option. We always went. CCD was not an option. We always went. But my first day of Catholic school was actually seminary. It was as a Dominican friar. So I had a secular education, and I think there were just, even beyond my parents' appreciation, I was just a lot of other influences in the world that attracted me. I mean, just either like a career or kind of a life of prestige or et cetera. And I loved playing sports growing up. So I had aspirations of doing many other things with my life, really. But I always knew for sure, even though I'd say even growing up, didn't have, I'd say, the witness of great priests in my home diocese or men who I would have looked up to and been like, wow, I want to be like you. I want to be a priest like you. I always had a sense, especially through my own father, that the faith is real. And even if I wasn't sure myself whether, in my high school years especially, whether I fully understood it or fully gave my assent, there was always a way in which I knew I couldn't fully walk away. And when I went to college, I also went to a very secular school. I saw a lady with the Kyrie eleison shirt left, but I went to Duke, and Kyrie Irving would be a friend of this area. And I've always thought that'd be a really funny sweatshirt. If you're an opposing team and you have Kyrie Irving in your house, you say, "Kyrie, have mercy on me." Kyrie eleison, So we just gave your sweatshirt a shout out. It's a great sweatshirt, but I was saying that Kyrie Irving, the basketball player, would be a really beloved, was at least for his time in Cleveland, and he went to Duke and I went to Duke. We just missed each other, but I always thought that would be a great kind of Catholic joke on Kyrie Irving, like, please have mercy on us before you come. Don't drain too many threes. But it was at Duke that I really had to wrestle very serious in a very secular place, and also a very, say, like, not just secular, but also very socially or morally liberal place. So just in which the basic truths of Catholic moral teaching, whether or not you believe the things about God, Trinity, Christ, sacraments, just like even the Ten Commandments, so before Christ, even, the natural moral law. You don't even need to believe in Christ to recognize the natural moral law. Those kinds of things were just kind of taken for granted as not true or not believable, or like, you're ridiculous if you think those things, or even more try to live those things. What a waste. And so I think I really had to reckon with, like, is this real? Is what am I for? What is my life for? What is all of this for? So philosophical questions, apropos of Father Travis and his brother. And I often had this thought in college or going into college, that I could answer these questions at some time later in my life, like when I was in my 40s, which of course is the greatest of all foolishness, because you want to have first a sense of the destination before you start trekking on any sort of path. Obviously, your GPS isn't taking you anywhere. I wasn't pulling out of St. Dom's until this church in Canada was, in my ways, I guess it was. And so thanks be to God, like the restlessness of my own mind and heart to know the truth and to kind of determine what's the ultimate destination point in the GPS that is my life. I needed to resolve that question. And so I basically kept on peeling back you could say the layers of the onion until I realized, no, it's like God is real. God is surely real. And God, not only is God real, but God has spoken. God has revealed his own self. So we're not just interested in whether I can know that God exists through maybe a philosophical proof, which you can find in philosophy and which is valid, wholly valid. But that doesn't get you to know the interior life of God. That doesn't get you the sense of, like, you have a specific vocation, you have a specific relationship with God. Are you called to intimacy to speak of God in the way that Sister spoke of, from the heart, whether that's an angry heart, whether that's a heart seeking, or always a heart seeking peace, but an angry heart or a peaceful heart or anywhere in between. And I knew, for reasons which Father Travis already elucidated, just the solidness of the Catholic faith, historically, doctrinally, also the fact that I was philosophically inclined, and the Church's great appropriation of you could say the Western and especially the Aristotle Greek philosophical tradition. I knew there was just a lot of wisdom here. This was trustworthy, and that Protestant Christianity just didn't ultimately make sense, and that Judaism as a covenant that was as yet unfulfilled and that without a prophet having spoken in some 2,000 years, that didn't yet make sense. And I could perceive certainly that Islam was a perversion of really Christian and Jewish dogma. And then I knew they're calling it polytheism of other major world religions. You can't have multiple gods. You can't have multiple deities. For a God to be infinite, there can only be one. And so then I was, okay, well, I think the Catholic faith, if there is a truth a religious truth, it seems to be in the Catholic faith. But still, the further question becomes: it's not just a deduction of like, let me rule out the other options and then kind of choose this party. Because at the end of the day, like, you haven't come to OCIA, you're not seeking the Easter sacraments because you want to be part of a club, or because you want new friends, or because you're looking for a good social community. And it's like true. I mean, Catholicism is trending now. Like, we have a parish, the Dominicans have a parish in Greenwich Village, New York City. There are 130 people in OCIA at one parish. Another church on the Upper East Side, which happens in God's providence to be the priest where I was baptized in a Dominican church, so you can say my fate was sealed, but St. Paul already told us it was sealed from all eternity. We have there's maybe 90 people on the books. I don't know, they may have 60 or 70 come in actually. Our electrician can go. But it's so Catholicism is coming back, but it's not for community. It's not because people are looking for tradition. It's not ultimately because people are looking for something they can hang their hat on in a kind of earthly sense. You're looking for God. You're looking to have intimacy and friendship with God because God is forever. God is the only one who is forever. And married couples, both of my sides know that the only love that is truly forever is love that comes from God. And we can only come to know that in a kind of personal way through faith. And I think that was really the gift that was given me ultimately at my third year of college, was just that this is not just a deduction of a kind of historical investigation or a philosophical investigation. This is a revelation from God. God's speaking. When we speak of faith, we speak of God, first truth, infallible truth, speaking to the mind and moving your heart so as to say, yes, your word is truth. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. And so I really kind of felt, in a sense, seized, by God, not in some sort of mystical, road to Damascus kind of vision, but just in the depths of one's conscience. I think analogous to the way that we heard in the beautiful story of our marriage here, how you just kind of knew this is the one, and I don't need to date anyone else. This is the person whom God has put before me. I have found through the course of human life. This is true. This is my life. This is the one I should marry. So analogously with respect to the faith, that the Catholic Church is real, and Jesus is all of it. And so then it was a question of, okay, this is worth my life. What am I going to do? And I thought, about maybe going to law school or going to graduate school and becoming a teacher or a professor or something, and having a large Catholic family. And of course, that's an attractive thing. And I would say just at the outset, like, I never appreciate the language. I felt called to marriage. Because everyone's called to marriage. I mean, if you're a man, you're called to be made one with a woman. And if you are a woman, you are made in your body to be called one, to be united to a man. It's described in our being. Like, we all have a neurological system that's whole and entire, and a digestive system that's whole and entire, and a respiratory system. But our reproductive system is divided. Like, etymologically, it's sex. But that's what that means. It's cut in half. Of course, the way the reproductive system becomes fully functional is when it becomes one. So the vocation to marriage is written in our being. And to be called to the priesthood or to be called to consecrated life is not so to speak, a denial of marriage, but a transcending of that marriage, so that the desire in our being for perfect love is not realized in a mediated way through a spouse to God, but goes directly and entirely wholly to God. And so that's why, in the most basic sense, I'm called to marriage because I'm a man. And of course, I would have desired marriage and thought very seriously about it, but I began to realize, as I continued to kind of go to Mass, not just on Sundays, but during the week, and to go to sacrament of confession more regularly and to study the faith more, that I think that the God was basically calling me to give everything. Not just to give the fruits, but also to give the tree that produces the fruits. To give everything that's wrong. And that's what consecrated life is. It's not just kind of, I'm going to dedicate myself to profession to the church full time. And this was what would distinguish, even in a certain kind of way, the diocesan priesthood from the religious priesthood, is that the religious makes of his entire life. I mean, the diocesan priest on the day of his diaconate ordination, he vows, he promises celibacy to the bishop, he promises obedience to the bishop, and the priest makes the religious makes a vow of chastity and of obedience, and also he adds to that poverty as well. But there is a difference really in the kind of the theology, and not just the theology as kind of a theory, but as the reality of what the diocesan priest and the religious do, because the diocesan priest makes a promise to his bishop. It's not, formally speaking, a vow is something to do with respect to God. It means even marriage vows are, more properly speaking, marriage promises. We don't have to downgrade that, it's just to distinguish it. So, on your diaconate ordination, at my diaconate ordination, I too promised celibacy and obedience to the bishop who ordained me. But when I made my vows as a Dominican friar until death, I made those to God, through my superior, but to God. And in that sense, you consecrate yourself to the Lord so that everything that you are can become an act of worship. I mean, the ordinary course for a human being is like we worship when we pray from the depth of our heart. We worship when we go to mass. We worship in various religious activities you might do. But like once you consecrate the tree, not just the fruits, like even drinking a cup of water is really properly speaking an act of worship. Because everything you are has been set aside to God, which is why when religious vocations go awry, it's such a tragedy because this being that was consecrated himself and offered his will definitively to God is now taken back to something other way. So I felt this basically, I would say, moved this desire from within that was I did not want to, I could not kind of give myself to anyone else. It just had to be for God. And when I look back on like how I had come to a deeper knowledge and love of God, it was through study, and it was through communal prayer, and it was through the liturgy. And then I learned that there was in fact a religious order whose very essence was to do this kind of thing, to live together, to pray together, to study together, and then from the abundance of that well, build up through those activities, you preach, you share, you give what has been given to you first in prayer and in study in a life. And that's what the Dominican order is. That's what St. Dominic founded the friars, the order of friars preachers. Just around the same time, St. Francis founded the order of friars minor. So we are cousins, really, which is why there's the really kind of relationship and banter which you've seen already, and which could really have no end. But yeah, and so that was, I would say, maybe you've heard of St. Thomas Aquinas before, probably in one way or another. So St. Thomas Aquinas was a Dominican friar, and some people think he was the founder of the order. He wasn't. St. Dominic was. But most people meet the Dominicans through the writings of St. Thomas. He's really one of the greatest minds ever to live, and especially the greatest minds in Western civilization. And he was a Dominican, and he taught and he wrote, not for his own glory, but to teach the friars and to teach people of God about God. And it was through his text that I had come to realize, like, it's actually possible, to think about God precisely, to think about God in a kind of systematic, scientific way, where you're not just kind of groping in the dark trying to figure out, like, how do I speak about God? How do I think about God? What's true? Is theology just kind of writing poetry and like writing flowery things in a sophisticated way, and then that's what? No, you can actually come to have a greater contact with God through what you know about Him, because you can't love someone who you don't know. And so some exposure I had to St. Thomas in college led me to appreciate the kind of the dignity and the vitality and the strength of not only the Catholic intellectual tradition, but also especially of the order, Dominican order. And so after graduating, I had already kind of planned to go study in Ireland for 1 year, and so I did that, and then I became a friar in 2017, and I was ordained a priest in 2024. And I'm now, I was assigned to St. Dominic's in Youngstown in July. So this is really my first, like Father Travis, my first full assignment out of studies, out of ordination. And it's a great joy. Just a quick word about the Dominican order itself, or kind of the apostolates that we do before we can get to other questions. So we're after our names, you'll often see the initials OP. And SJ would be the Society of Jesus. So the OP is for the Order of Preachers, Order of Friars Preachers. And typically, the Dominicans historically have not really done parish work. So it's kind of an anomaly in some sense that Dominicans in America have done parish work. But when the first province of Dominicans was founded, that was the need for the bishops. So we were sent to open up parishes. But usually Dominicans would teach in universities, would teach in seminaries especially, would have like churches that didn't have kind of CCD programs or kind of full parish ministry doing marriage prep and that kind of thing, but would really do kind of like preaching, cultural formation, intellectual formation, a place where you wanted to do a steady Bible study or this kind of like you would go to the Dominican church and do that kind of thing. And there would be maybe 10 or 15 or 20 friars who would live there, and each of them would be living together, but they would do different things in the city as well, and what have you. And so we were kind of urban preachers and preaching preachers, studious preachers, preaching preachers, prayerful preachers. But then the parochial need in the U.S. has led us to take up parochial work. And so in this specific context in Youngstown, my day-to-day duties would be pretty similar to that probably of Father Travis or any kind of other parish priest. So, celebrating a Mass, doing confessions regularly, meeting with parishioners, marriage prep, baptism prep, OCIA, all of like the joys of really being with people from the womb to the tomb. So, the baptismal font and the funeral cemetery. Absolutely. All those things. And it's a great joy because you're with the people of God seeking God. And that's what we're all in this together. I mean, every person by his baptism, every person by his confirmation is the same. Right? We're seeking to receive the love of God. And then it's through a specific route of vocation. So, yeah, I guess at this point, maybe it's good to open.
Will anyone else want to share about their day to day?
Yeah.
I'll just add in talking about the mention that husband and wife, our role is to populate heaven.
Yeah.
Um, we've always recognized this kind of dual goal. Our parents and the priestly formation or marriage formation are the priests who the formation that I've talked about. But now don't forget your role is to have partners in salvation, right? To help each other on that journey to heaven. Like, and that's primary. God blesses you with kids. That's important, but that's secondary to your primary role. But we were talking earlier and reflecting on the way that we have a big family and blessed, and it really this journey of faith is twofold thing of marriage, of parenting. It's a constant thing, and to your point earlier about prayer, if there's one thing that we could leave is that whatever your call is, whatever your vocation is, lean on prayer and build a relationship with God. We throughout our married life, we struggle at different times as we find this rhythm of prayer. The couple we've always prayed as with our families, our children, every day, evening. But we struggled. But when we really found a rhythm and hit our stride, like we get up and pray morning for the day, you find that you're more unified. That you find a deeper peace as you're listening to God's call in your heart. So yeah, it is that. I don't know if you have anything to add, but I would say that the call to prayer, the call to holiness, something that there, you lean on Christ, praying every day, He will guide you.
Well, I guess I would just say in marriage we have someone like with us, that iron sharpens iron sort of concept, where our weaknesses are kind of pointed out to us in the reality of such a close relationship. When I fall short, it affects him. And if I'm paying attention and being careful as I could notice that. Or sometimes he may need to bring it to my attention, or vice versa. So that reality that if our ultimate goal is heaven, and helping each other get there, then we really have to be aware of how we're helping each other do that, how we're seeing the way that we treat each other, the way that we are just interacting in that day to day, how that affects our ability to keep moving forward. And obviously, for our day to day with all the church at the very least, it's very easy to get caught up with and distracted by that. Sometimes time wise, they do take number one priority. So just because of their neediness or the stage of a newborn, or we've been through all these different phases, but really drawing back to the fact that we are that is our goal, is to get each other to heaven. Therefore, we have to turn to that priority that God has given us each other, and not losing sight of that.
And the kids do that. These are our faith. We need to treat each other. My mom always said, I have three boys in my family. She always said, the way you treat me, sisters, is the way you're going to treat your wife. I laughed. I was like, yeah, I'll do everything will be perfect when I'm married. And as you know, you're still human. You develop, and so we try to be really conscious about the way that we treat each other and that example that we set for our children. It's a daily battle, though.
Being real about our weaknesses too, I guess. Not making excuses, being, apologizing to our kids, apologize to each other, seeking mercy and forgiveness. I want our kids to see that conflict happens and that we work through that. That we don't always agree on everything, we don't approach everything the same way, but we can work through it respectfully and with love, not tearing each other down in the process, or turning around and being like, oh, that, that's not going to help them see good and fruitful marriage. So, just keeping
definitely could say, "Oh, your dad," a lot, but she graciously, mercifully does. So, oh, there's all things.
Yes.
There's all things.
Yeah, it's our provincial superior, who's based in New York City. So the Dominican order, it's maybe a introduction or like a comment about how religious orders work and collaborate in dioceses. It's like the basic. I mean, sometimes especially I mean the Catholic Church, and you wonder like, how's the Catholic Church governed? Like, I know there's a pope in school, like last year we had a lot of pomp and circumstance, very moving to see all of that. But like, and then I know there's Bishop Bonner because we were at the cathedral last week. Wasn't that very moving to see so many people around, like, what hope that should give all of us that God is clearly at work, in your own lives, but in everyone else who is there. So okay, there's a local bishop, and there's the pope, and then there's my parish priest, and then we have like monasteries where they're kind of more or less. Are you the same sister as Mother Angelica? Is that right? Okay, so yeah, basically religious orders kind of cross the diocesan boundaries, and we're autonomously governed with respect to our internal governance. But then we, wherever we are admitted or invited to actually serve, we're then in that location obedient to the bishop and the things that pertain to public life. So basically, like with respect to things that we do as Dominicans in our own life in the convent and in our life as a province, kind of all of the brothers who are part of the Eastern Province, or in the U.S., there's 4 provinces across the geographic spectrum of the U.S. We're all kind of autonomous in that regard, and we have our master of the order is in Rome, and so he's the successor of Saint Dominic, 800 years going now. And so basically, we elect in the Dominican order we have the universal master of the order, and then there's provinces throughout the world, and then there's local friaries, local provinces. And basically, we elect at each level. So the local community will elect their superior, and then like the representatives, all the convents will go every 4 years to a chapter, and they'll elect our provincial superior, and then eventually the provincials all get together and they elect the master of the order every 9 years. And so our provincial superior is in charge with the personnel assignment of the province, and so he himself that given the needs to Youngstown and so forth. We're obedient to the master of the order is obedient to the Pope. The Pope is the supreme. I mean, you know those famous words from canon law that he has supreme, universal, immediate jurisdiction and full jurisdiction over the entire church. So he, as the vicar of Christ on earth and the single head, so he can do anything, anywhere. The Pope, by the very nature of his authority, by the very nature of his office. But as in all things, authority is best wielded gracefully, and prudently, especially. And so, the prudent man allows delegation. So the Pope doesn't govern too much our interior affairs, but all of our laws would have been approved by the Pope when we were founded, and any kind of new things, major new things that we would want to adopt or change would eventually.
Example, our church is a group of beginning every mass, we have the next to do the 2 masses, and then the people go over to all lessons and the power of God. What do you see as the priest of the church?
Well, I've never been good at predicting the future, but I do have a lot of hope that the diocesan-wide push for vocations that we've been doing, will have a lot of fruit. I've personally met with a number of guys who are really thinking about either religious or priestly vocations. I know a couple young girls who are also thinking about religious vocations. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. I think we currently have 8 seminarians, and I'm really excited to see if we have more pictures on that poster next year. But that's a conversation with Father Chad or with Father Will Wainio. I think Father Wainio has a picture in this, in Al County. Office of Vocations. They're the co-directors of the Office of Vocations. I haven't spoken with them in a while, but when we did the initial weekend push for the Call by Name initiative, we had about, I think, 65 people that were submitted, 65 names that were submitted. That was just the first weekend. I don't know how much that changed the second or third weekend, because I definitely in my parishes, I actually forgot to remove the announcement the third weekend, and so people were still giving me names, and so I in the third weekend I was submitting more names. So I don't know how all that is going, but I do have a lot of hope in the activity of the Holy Spirit within our diocese. I do believe that what Bishop Bonner has asked us to do is guided by the Holy Spirit, and that it will bear fruit. Maybe not this immediate year, but maybe next year. I don't know. That does give me a thought that maybe I should call Father Wainio and see how things are going, because it's been a while since we chatted. I'll see him next week. So I'm the associate. The pastor is Father John Sheridan. Yes, we have one parish that is a merger of 3 former parishes. A Divine Mercy Parish, which is the merger of St. Mary, St. Joseph, and St. Barbara Parish. And then we also have, that's a mass one. In Canal Fulton, we have St. Philip and James Parish. Both of them have a school, so both parishes have a school. And it's a lot. We have a lot of funerals. But yeah, so I'm always busy. But I'm not without help. I am the help officer, the guy.
To add to that, I mean, as a newcomer to the diocese, coming from the outside in, obviously it's very painful to see a lot of so many parishes, either close or to become clustered or condensed, consolidated with others. I mean, you just mentioned your current parish is basically like 5 or 6 previous parishes. Maybe that's not that 3. Oh, just 3. Okay, I thought there was 2. But I mean, this is the case. I mean, in Youngstown proper, I mean, there's parishes that are now 1, which formerly were 3 or 4 or 5, and have been through stages, increments of closing or clustering. But I think when you look out across this room, there are 30 people here, more or less. 30 candidates. That's what we had in the program. 39. I lowballed it. All the better. And there are many young people here. Probably many single people here, men and women alike. And I mean, you were saying at the beginning that a vocation, the lowercase e vocation, to be a priest or to live a married life or to be a consecrated religious is a specification of the Greek vocation, which all of you will seize or be seized by. You can say, I'm used to vigil in a new way. And so, I mean, really, as you come to the Easter Vigil, make an intention. God, I offer myself to you in a new way at this Easter Vigil. As you take me for yourself. For those of you being baptized, this is so radical. For those of you being confirmed, it's also extremely profound. I offer myself to you anew, because I mean, if you're being baptized, it's the first time, and you're being reborn, and then made an adult on the same night. And like, please take me, use me for your church. And obviously, as I said, everyone's called to marriage. So don't be surprised if you have a desire to be a mother or to be a father. That's natural. That's you're a human being with a pulse, thank God. But then you want to ask yourself, well, are you calling me to something and to make a total offer? And that's where as Father Travis is one example of a convert on YouTube, but in the case of a convert who very quickly after went into priestly formation, in these next couple of years, really just think about, like, do I desire that? Because I became a Dominican not because I felt like Salvador was against my will or something, because I love God, and I wanted to be closer to God, and I wanted to give myself to Him, and I love studying, and I love preaching, and I love praying with other people, especially with in a group of men, in the way that Dominicans do. And I thought this is a great life. I mean, it was truly the same for Travis and you finding each other. People weren't pulling your teeth to get married. No, I don't think you are. So you will find it's a journey of love and joy. Hey.
Okay, you said friar till death.
Yes. So when I professed my solemn vows, I said, I will be obedient to you and your successors till death. So that means that my vows expire when I die. Without getting my vows somehow dispensed, I would not be able to. Yep. Yeah.
Job, right? And they're not called to it, or even like recent sort of are, which is the so then what is the
This is a great question, an excellent question. Thank you for asking it. So I like to think of the way we can compare religious and diocesan priests, and this is a true statement, and it's a great compliment too. Oh yes, the question is the question at the root of the question is, how does being a priest and being a consecrated religious, how do those things fit together in the Dominican order? Like, I'm doing the work of a diocesan priest at a parish, but I'm also something different. I'm a friar, and my vows as a friar end at death, but they're not vows to God, not promise to the bishop. That's right.
Yeah.
So basically, you can think of the diocesan priesthood as like the general infantry of the church, all the way up, kind of the hierarchical line, and then you can think of consecrated religious as like special operations. And it's not to say that like we're better, It's just to say like we're specialized. Like I don't. This is the clothing I wear,
Yeah.
And we live by a specific rule, if you also you could say general practitioner, specialist, right? Well, we're not getting paid anymore. That's for sure. So, but I'm looking for the 100-fold, still looking for that. But yeah, so basically, what that means, very practically, is I will always live and be assigned with other Dominican friars. So even though I'm at a parish, St. Dominic's parish, I'm also we have a convent, like a friary, and there's 5 of us who live there, which is actually pretty small for a Dominican house. And every day we pray together. We sing our prayers across the choir in chapel in the morning, and then in midday we do that privately. In the evening we come together, and then after dinner we have a night prayer. So there are certain aspects of the way that we live out the priesthood that are qualified or specialized by being a member of the order. And so I will never really be assigned to a place where other Dominicans are. So that's how I live out the vows until death, but also do the work of a priest, maybe a parish priest, maybe a chaplain, maybe a professor, whatever it is.
you may be
Yeah, I think so. We use the form. No, all the days of our lives, right? Which all the days of our lives until death do us part. They both mean the same thing. So I guess it's similar but different. Your bride, remember that.
Yeah, I actually think of the true spouse of the priest and of the religious is God. Spouse relationship with God.
But in our case, the marital vow is until death of one or both of the parties. God forbid. But if one of us would die tomorrow, that would be the marriage would effectively end. We won't have. But, that is yeah. No. In his goodness. We make that vow to each other. The Trump, he knows the formal code, but until this effective until or that lasts until death.
When we were doing marriage presents, we were like, we don't like that. We want to stay married for that's not supposed to end.
It is, it
does that weird finality feels odd, but
I think
yet it keeps our perspective on the ultimate goal being, we really need to keep ourselves in the right order.
Yeah, that is. I think that there's a humbling sense of that where it's a good reminder that that she's not the end of my life, and I'm not the end of her life, right? And we're not the end, right? The end is God, and so it is kind of sobering in a human way to think when we're dead that marriage is no longer exists. But truly, in a eternal sense, it's very hopeful, right? Because we see that we walk this journey together, and God praise God through His providence, we'll see each other in heaven, we'll know each other in heaven, but we will be in a perfect union because we will be God. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels between the religious relationship with religious with God and spouses and each other. So that.
And it's a good reminder too that the sacraments, there are no more sacraments in heaven, because we don't need signs anymore in heaven, because we see face to face. You know, the signs are the signs that are the sacraments, those unique kinds of signs which cause grace by the very act of being performed. The signs are like the shadow. You know, you will look at a host your entire life, and it will always look like bread, and it will always taste like bread, and it will always feel like bread, all the same. And yet it is always, after it's been consecrated, is always Jesus. And that takes faith to see that. And it will never get easier in a sense to see that, because, and in fact, as a priest, the closer you get to it, the more you feel the bread, the more you touch it, the closer you are to the bread. And yet every single time you say those words, this is my body, you know that at the very depth of that thing's being, it's been entirely transformed. But in heaven, we're the ones who are transformed to see God face to face. And so we don't need the sacraments anymore in heaven, and therefore we don't need them. That's eloquent. You have the union that you're longing for already, and you'll actually be closer, and you'll love each other more in heaven, even though you won't be married. So it's better.
We'll still find each other.
Breakdown of boys and girls. Third question, and more importantly, who wear out faster
We have 5 boys and 4 girls.
But real quick on the order, so we have girl, boy, girl, 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 and through 5, we didn't find out. We always said we don't want to know. We'll wait till we're born. So we had a girl, wow, girl, boy, wow, boy, girl, wow, wow, wow. And after that, I said, I need to know if we're gonna have boys. And then God gave us 4 straight boys. So the shoes wear out a lot faster these days because the 4 little monkeys are
The boys' shoes go much faster, and the girls follow right along, so they can pass them immediately directly to the next. So yeah, there's lots of sharing.
Christmas morning must be.
Oh, it is. And I was going to say, I think one of the questions that I can't even remember what the question was, but one of the things inspired me to think about, like a gift of sanctity in my vocation, and cooperating in bringing life to the world is by far the coolest thing I've ever done. So if anyone asks me the coolest thing I've ever done in my life, having a baby, and the gift of being able to have done that 9 times, and it changed me as a person every time, because cooperating with God, so it's just really amazing. So, yeah.
And we're really blessed. Monica's a full-time mom. She's 9 kids are really excited. So she leads the household later, and all through school, and all this. It's a real blessing to have that. So she does the harder work. The boys are really hard.
For our consecrated religious, could you talk about maybe something we have never seen before?
You guys know St. Francis, and when he gave up everything, the bishop put the sackcloth on him. That's kind of what my dress is. He also got a cord put around his waist, and that's what we have. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Mother Mary came down to St. Dominic and gave him the scapular. Is that correct?
It was to another friar, but that is true, yes.
Okay. I couldn't remember who it was.
No, that's okay.
And she said, I want you to wear this your entire length of body so that you remember that you have my protection. Now, you guys can't, well, lay people, it's hard to walk around with one of these things. So they kind of changed it a little bit. We made them about this big, and with the string. There was one in the front, one in the back. I have one a lot of our sisters have it underneath our clothes. And it's the same thing. We are protected by Mother Mary. Let's see. I have my knots, and they go for the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, which means no money, no honey, and yes, ma'am. That's what it means. We have our monstrance to always remind us of our job. In fact, Jesus Christ himself came down and told St. Faustina, if it wasn't for the cloistered sisters that were praying all day, I would have destroyed the world a long time ago. So we are the ones that are keeping the world going. The collar is to remind us of the Eucharist. To remind that. Let's see. I got this when I did my vows. This is just this thing. Now my title is the Queen of the Most Holy Rosary. But seriously, this, I love it. I pray the rosary all the time, but oh my gosh. He tried to go in the bathroom with this thing and not get it in the toilet. Or the one that they gave me had chains on it. I was breaking them. I had safety pins right here, so every time that it broke, I would safety pin it together. So I finally went to St. Raphael's and told Barb, help. She's a really good friend of the monastery. So I said, I need something. So I got this, and I catch it on everything. I do the preps for Mass. So I set up the purificators and the chalice and all that. And I always catch it on the cabinet. But at least it doesn't break. But, it's a pain sometimes because this is a little bit longer than my dress. So every time I move, I choke myself. So it's like, you could have done something that was a little easier, but, life is,
What's on your head?
Okay, I have 4 pieces. And I always show this to the kids, and the kids are like, ooh. Okay, so I have what is called a cap that holds my hair back. This is called a bandeau right here. This holds it up like this. This is called a gimp. This, obviously, I'm not supposed to show any of my hair because our tradition is nobody is allowed to see your hair except Jesus Christ, who we are, he's going to be my husband, right? Which is really good because I have a lot of gray hair. I get to hide it, so it's really easy. And then we have the veil. Our novices have a white veil. Our postulants have a jumper. It's like a jumper with a white blouse. So we do have a postulant. If you ever come to the monastery and can see through the slat, you'll see somebody with a shorter veil, brown veil, and a blouse. And that is kind of, in football terms, I grew up with Cleveland Browns, first-year rookie. She's our first-year rookie. Then we have 2 years of novice, and then we do our first profession, which is what I just did. It's called junior profess. Then we have 6 years, and then we do our final profession. So from the time we start to the time we end is 10 years. And if I tell people that are coming in, if you don't know what you're doing in 10 years, that's a whole other issue. So in about 10 years, you should kind of sort of know if this is the right life for you. So.
Yeah, the one vocation that does not exist is the one to the order of perpetual discernment.
Yes.
There's no vows to profess. So my habit is the Dominican habit. I mean, the first thing to say, I guess, about a religious habit, it comes out of the tradition, the monastic tradition, or the tradition of monks. And the idea is that you wear something simple, so that you don't have to think too much about your clothes, and you can really offer the energy and time and money you would have spent on clothes back to God. So it's really a move towards simplicity. It's also a reminder to us of our very own consecration. It's first for us, to help us basically live the life of a cloistered heart before God, and then also it's a sign to others that we're for God and we're set aside. So basically, the Dominican habit is composed of 5 parts. There's the tunic, which is what Sister was referring to. In her case, is like a dress, and this is basically like a medieval. We're creatures of the 1300s, early 1200s, of the 13th century, early 1200s. So this is basically like your average like medieval peasant's garment. It's kind of like a head, shoulder to toe, dress effectively. And then we wear a belt, a black belt, a leather belt, and then we also have a rosary. And I agree, paracord is the play for sure. So I've been had paracord for since my novitiate. I made this after having another kind of rosary with smaller beads, which I crushed every time I would kneel down. And for rosary, I had like two bead decades of the rosary. It's not very helpful. Yeah, so not even the beginning for it. So and then we had the scapular of which Sister spoke, which was given to an associate of Saint Dominic named Blessed Reginald of Orleans. He was on his deathbed, not New Orleans, but Old Orleans in France, and he was sick on his deathbed, and Our Lady came to him and told him that he was thinking about the order, and he was a prominent canon law professor, a priest, and was impressed by the order and thought, well, I might do that, and then he fell deathly ill, and then Our Lady came to him and said, you will join the order, and you will bring the scapular with you, which will exactly signify this protection. And then we wear this white, what's called a capuce. So normally, the black I'm wearing is a cape or cappa in Latin, but if we don't have the cape on, then this is the ordinary Dominican habit. Just kind of looks like this. And so this is you may, if you've seen like pictures of Bishop Bonner, he has like a purple cape like this. This is an analogous type thing, and the tradition at least is that this signifies the faculty to preach. So ordinary diocesan priests in the Middle Ages didn't always have the faculty to preach. They would celebrate Mass, they'd perfect the sacraments, but they wouldn't always preach in the kind of way that we see experience the Mass regularly. So this signified that wherever a Dominican went, he had the universal authority from the Pope. There was a question about papal authority earlier, to preach wherever he went. And so that's basically our shtick. And the hood is similar to a veil. We don't really wear it the same way, but if you catch a friar early in the morning in the chapel, he might have his hood up, and whether his eyes are closed in prayer and sleep is God's business. Sometimes it's full, Saint Therese has things to say about that. But yeah, and the cape is like an outer garment, and children sometimes ask if you're a superhero in a certain kind of way. Yeah, more supernaturally so than any other superhero, who are just mutants. So, yeah, I wear this year round. There's like materials that are thicker and materials that are thinner, which can be helpful. This is like a winter cape, great for Youngstown. I didn't have this before I came. The funerals in the summer. Anytime we wear black, the habit. Outside as a coat in the wintertime, and it's also a penitential garment. So during Holy Week, especially the Triduum, we just wear this all the time, black. And then if you're at a wedding, bride gets removed, so you wear black. And then
I've got one for very tough to primary. For the folks who will be I wonder if you can tell us 2 things. What kind of volunteers do you guys do? And if you have, and 2, how much do you rely on from local?
Okay, first of all, we do have an older sister from New York City, and she is 89, I think. And so we have volunteers that come in and just sit with her and talk to her and watch videos with her. It's pretty easy. We need people to do that because each of the sisters have a specific duty, and we can't sit with her all day long. We do need somebody to sit with her. We do have volunteers for that. We need volunteers for the soup and bread sale and the pepperoni roll sale. Those are our fundraisers. So we rely on our donations and things like that through that. Also, we do have a couple people who we're nurses and those kinds of things, so we get the Social Security a little bit from them too. We do get a lot of donations. We do have a wish list on our website, and it does say what we need, like toothpaste and shampoo and those kinds of things. So we do get a lot of people, and we get the donations of the people that know me specifically because I'm a chocoholic. We do get people that will bring in chocolate, and they are like the best in the whole world. And other things, we do have need of people to help us outside. The person that used to come and do our lawn and our landscaping, he retired. So we are kind of depending a little bit on people to come and help us with that. So we have people that we need help answering the phones or whatever. Our changes, it changes throughout the year depending on what we're doing. And we have people that come in for our Easter bread sale. They'll come in about 1 o'clock in the morning and they will help with the bread. So we have a lot of different opportunity there. And
If they went to your website or something, they could
yeah,
find out.
we have poorclairs.org, and we have the wish list is there, and we have opportunities for volunteer. You can call the office and talk to the secretary there.
Just real quick, sister.
Yeah.
I use the church a lot for the prayer request. You have an area that you can put prayer requests in. And I normally write out the request.
Yes, we do. Actually, you're looking at the person that does it. We have two ways of doing it. Actually, if you do get online and do the soup and bread sale and order online, there is a place where you can do the prayer intentions. We do have a box so that if you go into the chapel and you just go and get a piece of paper, we have paper there, you just write it out. I get it, I collect it every Wednesday. And what I do, I always explain this so that people understand how serious we are about your prayer intentions. We don't just throw them away. I take them from the online as well, from our website. I take all the prayer intentions and I put them on a list. We print them out. And you start at 3:30, I think, Mary Agnes, that was up, 3:30, 4 o'clock. She does her adoration. She has that piece of paper and she prays for everybody on that list. I show up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get the paper. I pray for everybody on the list. The next person comes in and it goes down all the way through till I think the last person is done at 8 o'clock. So all day long, every hour, there's a new sister coming to pray for all those people on the list. We take the list at the end of the day. We have a basket. And we put it, and it stays there in front of the Blessed Sacrament. So it's not like we take it and just throw it out. No, it stays with Jesus himself. And that's how kind of we handle it. So.
I use the box a lot.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, thank you again, all of you for being here. We had long drives, we had lots of kids to leave behind, and all kinds of other responsibilities. So we really appreciate all of you.